Sorry, I forgot to look. All right, I'd like to welcome everybody out to our city council meeting for January 8th, 2020. We'll begin our meeting by having an invocation given to us by Ann So, and then after that, our Pledge of Allegiance will be led by Josh Martindale, both members of our youth council. Ann.
Our Father in heaven, we are so grateful to be here on this wonderful day, and we are grateful for all the people who came out here today. And we ask thee that this meeting may go smoothly, and we say these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your participation in our meeting tonight. We will move on to city council comments and recognitions. I just would like to start out by welcoming a brand new member of our city council, Steve Shields, who is now representing District 4 and has replaced Councilwoman Martin, who, we just like to welcome out to our council and welcome to your first general meeting. So,
Thank you.
do you have any comments you'd like to make today?
None at all.
Okay. I'd also like to recognize our city crews for the awesome work that they've done with the snow removal. We've had quite a few snowstorms over the last couple months, and I have yet to actually get a complaint about snow removal, which is, I think, a win in my book. And so, good job, and we, once again, always appreciate the effort that they go through to make sure that we can move around our city. Any other council comments and recognitions? For me. Okay. All right, we will move on to the public comment portion of our meeting. We do have, audience members may bring any item to the council's attention, city council's attentions. Comment will be limited to 2 minutes. State law does prohibit the council from acting on items that do not appear on the agenda. If you do, we would like to make a comment. We do have comment forms that we'd like you to fill out. Once you fill that out, please hand that to any one of our police officers who'd be happy to take that from you and get that to us. Also, we do have a couple of comment forms that have been filled out. Both of those are actually for items later that we have public hearing for, so I'll make sure that we call those individuals up at that time to make sure that they're part of that discussion. Other than that, since those are for those items, any individual that would like to make comment to the council, please come up to the dais at this time and state your name and give us your comment. All right, seeing none, we will close the public comment portion of our meeting. All right, item 6, any city council board and committee reports?
No, luckily. A break over the holidays.
The holidays.
Cover.
Okay. All right, we will move on to reports, presentations, and appointments. Item 7.1, approval and resolution appointing a mayor pro tem for 2020 and other committee assignments.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number R2020-01, appointed Jared Henderson as the mayor pro tem for the 2020 calendar year.
Looking to you, your first one.
Yeah. I second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Jared?
Yes.
Clint?
I'm going to vote no with a comment, but I'll wait till the vote completes.
Appreciate it. Sherry?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
And I will also vote no. However, with 3 yeses, that motion does pass. Now we'll move to comments on that vote. Clint?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted a clarification of why my vote is a no vote on reappointing. This has absolutely nothing to do with Councilman Henderson and his abilities to act in the capacity of Mayor Pro Tem. He has done so for the past year, has done a great job, and will continue doing so moving forward. The reason for my no vote on this tonight was simply a matter of procedure and, I guess, interpretation of what that title of Mayor Pro Tempore may or may not actually mean. We had a discussion about this in our work meeting previously, but I felt like it was important to at least capture that as part of the public meeting tonight. For our purposes, Mayor Pro Tem, the duties are limited to acting in place of the mayor when he is absent to conduct a meeting, and that's really the extent of the responsibility of the Mayor Pro Tem as it is under our form of government. Councilman Henderson has done a great job, again, serving in this capacity, but it has been used in matters of serving on in another capacity by members of that committee to actually mean more than we put meaning on it here. And so again, my no vote is simply a matter of procedure and interpretation and has nothing to do with Councilman Henderson and his abilities.
Any other comments on your votes? I would just like to second what Councilman Smith said. I voted no for the same reasons. I do believe that Councilman Henderson has served well, but it's more of a matter of policy and process. So thank you. All right, we will move on to item 7.2, presentation of a youth council food drive proposal. Hunter Opeiken, did I get that right? And Randy Jones. Please come up to the podium. You can all come up. It's totally okay.
The people changed
Okay.
for the presentation. Okay.
So why don't you start by giving us your names?
Okay. So good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Leah So, Mayor of the Herriman City Youth Council.
I am Randy Jones. I am Events and Operations Specialist.
And I'm Josh Martindale, Assistant Events and Operations Specialist.
Okay. So today we are here to propose an ice skating charity event. If you have any comments or questions at any point, we would love to hear that from you guys. Okay. Okay, so a little background we have for you guys is that last year we did this event for the first time, and we got close to 400 pounds of cans to donate to the Utah Food Bank with around 50 people coming. The year before that, we did a teen dance that brought in about 250 pounds with about 35 people coming. So having the ice ribbon event has really brought more success, and that is why we would like to do it again. And Josh will tell us more about this event.
So we propose having a night where people can bring 5 cans for the Utah Food Bank, and in return they receive admission and skate rentals for the night. We chose Monday the 20th because this is one of the less busy days for the ribbon, so it cuts the least amount of revenue. Youth Council members will be there taking care of all cans. Now Randy will list some of the benefits this event has.
This event generates positive attention to the city, youth council, and Ice Ribbon. Also, we can't forget why we want to do this event, and that this helps families in need. The Utah Food Bank goes through a lot of food during the holidays, so January is the ideal time to replenish some of the food needed. Of course, this is for our families and friends. This is an event for them to spend time having fun while helping others. And while more of the specifics, Leah and Josh will go through reports and facts.
Okay, so we as a youth council recommend approval of this event with 5 cans equaling admission and skate rentals. If the city council is not comfortable with this, we could also have the cans only count for skate rentals and people would pay for admission. Additionally, the rate of 5 cans could increase.
So staffing the ice ribbon is going to cost $175 for the night. And a reminder that the ice ribbon is still open for the regular business, so people can pay admission and rentals like normal. So really much of that cost will be recouped.
Thank you for letting us present to you tonight. We would love to hear your thoughts and decisions for this event.
I think this is a great proposal. I know there was success in this last year and applaud youth council for wanting to do it again. Just a question, you said for the night, was there specific hours that this was targeted to be, talking about that there's still rental available during the day because it's open for its normal hours? What are your specific hours for the event that those cans would count for rentals?
So our specific hours are from, I think, 5:30 to 9, and yeah, and it's open during the day as well, so.
Okay. I actually think that this could be actually a busy day because it is a holiday. So I guess my question when it comes to fiscal impact would be to Wendy on this event and how it may affect this, since it is, I know they've targeted a Monday because we want to not be impactful to the revenue stream, but this happens to be a holiday.
Yes, and I know that they've done a lot of legwork with our event and Ice Ribbon staff, so they've done a lot of background work with them to prepare for this presentation tonight. So thank you very much for meeting with them and getting the information to make your presentation. Our recommendation would be, instead of the skate rental, the problem that we're having is the Ice Ribbon's gotten so popular that we are running out of skates. The past 2 weeks, we've seen over 7,000 people attend, and that was holidays, so we had extended hours, but we are always running out of skates. So my recommendation would be to do the admission and then still have people pay for their skate rental. That's how we do some of our other events, where we allow people to come for events and they get their admission to the ribbon free. So if they bring their own skates, then it's a free night of skating, but they're still paying for that skate rental so we can keep up with quantities on sizes.
And what's our normal cost breakdown again on admission versus skate rental?
It is skate rentals $3 and admissions $2. So, and you could even reduce the amount of cans to get that free admission.
I was just gonna say, maybe we can
That would be
adjust
our
things a little
recommendation.
bit. Is it normally just one can free skate, admission and skate rental?
No, I think
Five.
last year you did five.
Yeah. I think the idea was like $1 a can. So like if you got free admission and free rental, you need to bring 5 cans, which would kind of be like $1 a can.
I'm not necessarily worried about fiscal impact. I don't know that there would be money we're talking about, because our goal basically is to break even with that sort of amenity. It is a concern, but the thing would be running out of skates, the demand.
Right. And they showed their numbers from the previous 2 years, and they weren't that impactful. But I think as we continue to grow in attendance and people start to understand what the Ice Ribbon really is, and depending on how you promote it and market it, it could be a lot bigger. So you got to prepare for it.
Sorry to put you guys on the spot, but you guys put this together. Would you prefer to do that same night with just the admission for the cans and they still have to do the skate rental, or potentially pick another evening?
So we're okay, if you guys are okay, we're okay with the Monday night, the holiday. But if it's better, then we can move it to that following Thursday, which is on another night where there's low attendance.
You guys did the hard work. What would you prefer?
We would prefer the Thursday night to get as many cans as possible, donate more. Is that okay with you guys?
That still doesn't help us with the skate rental issue, though, and the can number. So
You think the skate rental issue would be an issue on a non-holiday? I think
Yes.
that was our-
It sounds like it has been on any night.
It's an
we
issue
are
every
running out
night.
of skates almost every day.
And how many pairs of skates do we have, Wendy?
350 something.
Keeping in mind that that's in all various sizes, so there's only so many of each size.
Yeah.
That's a lot of people on the ribbon, too.
Yes. Yeah. And so we've talked about that. We've talked about, should we buy more skates? But then it just makes the ribbon more crowded. So next year we're putting together a strategy for maybe some sessions and those types of things. But that's a discussion for another day.
Will the ribbon be open for general public admission if they wanted to pay at the same time?
Yes.
What if it was 5 cans for admission and another 5 cans for rental?
It'll be a lot of food.
I didn't realize you had the issue with the skate rental, but I don't know, other than you're just anticipating that it'll be a bigger draw, that you'll bring people that would not normally come? Is that what you're thinking? I am.
I think it will also encourage our regular people that come to come, because we have so many people that just love that ice ribbon. It's a good encourager for them to come and donate too. So
Yeah, so, but if they're normally coming in renting the skates, it wouldn't impact the skate rental per se. It's just the extra people that might come.
One, I definitely support the event. I think it's a great cause that the Youth Council's invested a lot of time in and is looking to build on the success that they've had in previous years. So I definitely support it. I think moving it to a Thursday night is going to give us the best opportunity for success without impacting what will probably be a busy day already. When it comes to, obviously, the mission, to Councilman Harrison's point, I think it's an opportunity to get people out to an amenity that may not normally come. But I think even looking at a break or a difference between admission and skate rental, I think it's something that should be at least strongly considered by the Youth Council to do, because I think the goal here is to obviously raise as much food for the food bank as possible. And I think that that'll be recognized by the residents and those that choose to go to that night, should that be the night that they choose to go. Yes, this is a great family activity to go, but it's also supporting a good cause. And I don't think saying 5 for admission and 5 or some variation of that for the skate rental is beyond reason to promote this type of event. So that's my 2 cents. A decision that I think needs to be made by the Youth Council, who are doing the heavy lifting on this.
And I think I'd say the same thing. I think I'm fine with whatever. I think it's up to the Youth Council to decide, how that's going to impact our residents and to make a decision based on that. I absolutely support the event. I think that it's fantastic. I want to see it continue to grow, and I think that that's part of being a member of an organization such as this, is having to make those decisions. So I would look to the Youth Council to take our concerns and to go and make a decision among themselves, and I expect I would be supportive of whatever that decision ends up being.
The other thing too is I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if we run out of skates from people paying for them with money or people paying for them with food. The whole intention here is to get food. So if we run out of skates, we run out of skates. That just means a lot of people came and skated. So that's a good thing. And either way, fiscally, it's getting covered, but hopefully it's getting covered with the donation of food.
And we want to accommodate as many people as we can, but it sounds like there's a little bit of a concern of overcrowding.
well, we can only accommodate so many people on the ice. I believe our number's like 380 at one time. And so, we kind of watch our skate rentals as they flow in and out. We have a lot of people now that have purchased their own skates and get skate passes. So on Monday and Thursday night, it shouldn't be too big of an impact. I was just looking at some of the numbers. So I would just recommend if we could just continue to have them work with our event staff and figure out kind of that happy medium that will make everything work. And we can kind of look at how things are going now that school's back in session and things are calming down a little bit and see where we're at.
Yeah, we certainly don't want to advertise for somebody to come in with their 5 cans if it's going to cover both and pay the 5 cans but not have skates for them. So I think there's got to be some way to balance that out. And maybe it's 5 cans for admission and maybe it's a reduced cost on the rental fee as an incentive that night. Something along those lines. I think there's a lot of options that can be considered on how to maximize what we do and bring in that night.
Can we actually really guarantee that if they bring their admission, if they brought their cans for admission and skate rental, and there's no skates?
No.
We can't do it. It would be any different if they just came and wanted to pay. We can't guarantee there's going to be
Right.
skates there either. So I'm not sure that there's.
We could do a
really much
voucher
different.
in that situation where they could come back at another time. So we have that option.
Yeah, that's a
Okay,
good option.
I think that would be a good solution.
You guys have any questions for us? Did we
there is mine.
confuse you enough?
Thank you.
Will
You guys
you
are awesome.
Thank
will you
you.
just
Nice work.
follow up with event staff tomorrow morning with Karen and Kevin, and we'll make sure we work with you. Okay.
Good job.
By the way, great
guys.
presentation, guys. Good job.
Right. Okay. We will move on to the public hearing portion of our meeting. Item 8.1, this is a continued item from December 11th, 2019. A public hearing and consideration of an ordinance approving the 2019 Water Conservation Plan. Justin.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. As you said, it was continued from December 11th. I don't plan on showing the presentation again since I went through the presentation last time. So basically this would be to close the public hearing and then adopt the ordinance to adopt the plan. So we received 0 public comment that I'm aware of. And there were no major changes to the plan since from the draft plan. There were a few minor grammatical changes and things like that we had to go through and modify, but other than that, there were no major changes. So with that, I recommend approval.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, any questions by the council? Okay, I will open.
I did have one question about the conservation plan. As I was looking over the numbers, it showed an improvement in, or a reduction in water usage by residents over the past 5 years. I had a question about whether or not that you felt that was more driven by just being cooler, wetter seasons, or do we feel like our conservation efforts are actually impacting behaviors of customers?
But I think there's a little bit of both. So obviously we have had, our winters have been a little bit and our springs have been much wetter, right? I think that may have some impact. But I think one of the largest impacts that we've seen are we have much more efficient fixtures in homes as well, so that's obviously helping, and that is promotion of conservation in general. And then also I think that we are starting to promote with our communications team a lot more of those local scape programs and those types of things that I think people are taking advantage of, and our commercial people are also following those same landscape plans and trying to reduce those landscapes that are high water consumption. So I think there's probably a little bit of both.
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. With that, we will open up the public comment, public hearing portion of this item. Please keep in mind that the same rules as the public comment will apply. If you have any question, or if you have any comments, please come up to the podium at this time, state your name, and give us those comments. Okay, seeing none, I will accept a motion to close the public hearing portion of this item.
I'll motion to close the public hearing with a brief comment just for the public. This was presented at our last meeting. Our general practice is that we don't vote on or act on anything the first time of the public hearing. So this is the second one. We had a full presentation, etc.
I will second the motion to close.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, that public hearing is now closed. Any further discussion among the council? I'll accept a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 01-2020, adopting the 2019 Water Conservation Plan by reference, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances and providing for an effective date.
I second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Clint?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
And I'll vote yes, that motion passes. Thank you very much. We will now move on to item 8.2, public hearing and consideration of an ordinance to approve the Parks Master Plan. Once again, this is an item that we did hear at a previous meeting as well. I'll turn this time over to Wendy.
Yes, the presentation was given in December. Like Justin, I'm not planning on giving a repeat of the presentation that Lisa gave on the Parks Master Plan last December. I do have 2 updates, however, from December. The first recommendation is to add Stephen Shields as a council member on the acknowledgement page, replacing Nicole Martin for District 4, since he will be the individual voting today. And the second is to be sure, and we mentioned this in the meeting in December as well, increase that open space number on page 56 of the plan to 2,417. We had a property closure just a week before that presentation in December, so that number changed. I think everything else is in place, so.
Okay. All right. With that, I will go ahead and open the public hearing. On this item, I do have somebody who's already filled out a comment form. Dwayne Boring, if you'd like to come up and give us your comment.
Good evening, Council. Sorry I missed this the first time I was in California attending a celebration of life. I speak to you this evening not only as a resident of Herriman in the District 4, but also as a Vice President of UTV Utah. For those that don't know, UTV Utah is an enthusiast and advocacy group representing over 15,000 members and is active politically and legislatively throughout the state when it comes to OHV issues. On this Parks Master Plan, we are asking that any decisions be delayed on the Parks Master Plan until such time as any OHV trails issues in these hills are decided upon in a final manner. The Parks Master Plan is not in the true spirit of being in coordination with the Herriman Hills Open Space Master Plan, as it purports to be. While the mountain biking, hiking, and equestrian communities have been well cared for, no other uses desired by the community and mentioned in the Herriman Hills Open Space Master Plan have been truly documented in the Parks Master Plan. We feel that any Parks Master Plan should include all uses to be planned for, including OHV trails, a shooting range, snow tubing areas, recreation on the flat top area of South Mountain, and other uses as outlined in this Herriman Hills Open Space Master Plan. Until such time, any final decision on the Parks Master Plan should be withheld. Even if the plan is easily amended, space needs to be planned for and reserved for these activities. Our open space recreation area should be open for all residents of Herriman, not just hikers, mountain bikers, and equestrian riders. Herriman has many residents who are eagerly awaiting trails to ride on and to possibly connect to Utah County as well. Herriman has many residents who are eagerly anticipating a shooting range, tubing hills, and disc golf courses in this open space. Let's make sure we plan for all these activities before they are cast aside due to lack of space and lack of planning. Thank you for your consideration.
Dwayne. All right, any other individuals that would like to come and make comment, please step up to the podium at this time. Okay, seeing none, I will accept the motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing on item 8.2.
A second?
I have a motion and a second. Sherry?
Yes.
Steve?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
I will vote yes, that motion passes. Any further discussion by the council?
Well, I would ask that same question. Why aren't those things in this plan?
There are OHV trails identified in this plan. Tonight, later tonight, or maybe tomorrow morning early, we'll have a discussion about the feasibility study and how the council wants to move forward with that. We are open to it if it makes sense and the easements are there and we can make it work. So it is in the Parks Master Plan. I believe there's also mention of shooting ranges, but I'll have to double check.
So the things that he was concerned about are already contained in the plan?
I'll double check shooting ranges, but I know that OHV, UTV trails are in this map, in this plan. And disc golf courses, and tubing hills, and what else did you mention, Dwayne?
That was
it.
the majority of it. If I may readdress real quick.
Unfortunately, now is not the time. We've closed the public hearing.
And we will have we have another item on the work meeting.
meeting.
We'll have this discussion. My question for Wendy is going back to the origination of this plan. Is this something that the city is required to have?
This is an update from our previous plan, which was done in 2015, 14, before I was with the city. It's an update due to the tremendous amount of growth the city has seen.
That was prior to us being able to
It was
qualify
prior
for federal
to
funds.
so many things, so many things.
The reason I asked the question, are we required to, my recollection was that in previous discussions, one of the reasons that we were told we wanted to have this plan is it enables us to apply for funding from grants from the county, federal, state, et cetera,
As well as impact fees.
impact fees. So we have
spending
to have
impact
a
fees.
plan in order to fund anything. And some of those things have been included, but not to the extent or detail that general public, and I think all of us agree, need to be. And we've had those conversations, and that's an item that's being added. So personally, while I've stated many times that I think OHV needs to be one of the primary uses up there. It should be part of our economic development plan. I don't want to bore you guys for me talk about this ad nauseum. But I mean, if it's included in the plan and mentioned, and it is easily amended, the purpose of having the plan in place is so that we continue to get funding to move along with existing plans, knowing that we plan to add all of those uses. There's just no way that we can plan for them all at once.
Well, and all of those uses are going to require an extensive public process, right? We have this new process in place where when we build a trail or we build a shooting range, it's going to go through planning commission, it's going to go through open houses, it's going to go through neighborhood meetings, it's going to run the gamut.
We have to do those studies and.
Due diligence, yes.
So I'll just, speaking for myself, I understand the concern for sure that this is a master plan and should include everything, or it's just not quite, it's not realistically feasible to do everything.
Right, and it kind of goes.
This is more concepts, and then
Right.
as each of those
Correct.
comes up, then we have to do that feasibility study and go through approval
Yes.
process for each one.
Correct.
So if they're listed in the plan, and that's the stated intention, we're going to have those
Yes.
elements and hopefully these general areas. There's no way to actually put them detailed in the plan without going through that, really the cost of doing all of that work. I mean, the topography, the access point, et cetera, et cetera.
Engineering, yes. And I might mention, that's one of the problems that we had with the Herriman Hills plan was the trails, right? Everybody expected those trails that were those squiggly lines that were all over the mountainside to be there, and that's not the intention.
Yeah, that's not
The
where the
intention is to
trail
give
will
an
be.
idea, but it goes into further design and goes through the process
So
later.
this isn't like the final plan of how everything will work. This is kind of the general idea of what we're trying to work towards.
Because if this was the final plan, you'd be building a swimming pool.
Right.
So,
That answers kind of my questions, and at least kind of, because this is kind of an ongoing conversation over a course of number of years, so I wanted to make sure I reset my mindset.
yes,
as
and
well.
it's
So-
also dependent on the budgets that you allocate, so.
Yeah, and I agree. Clear back to a few months ago when we talked about doing the feasibility studies and stuff like that. I just think it's so important to make sure that that is coming along at the correct pace, because it's going to take a pretty substantial amount of land and development and things like that. And if we don't plan for it or start penciling it in or inking it in, it's never going to happen.
I think that's been part of kind of the public discussion that's gone on in kind of previous conversations, discussions, was that there was a kind of a contingent that felt that only non-motorized, activities would be allowed on the mountain versus OHV and shooting range and other things. So it is important we have those stated in the plan that we intend to have those things. But there's no way that we can realistically lay everything out without
And this
having
plan
funding
is
to do
a
it.
10-year plan and even longer, so.
So I'll stay, as far as that goes, if there's still any confusion, I thought we kind of put that one into bed, but just in case, absolutely, we intend to
want
have
it.
OHV and other uses.
Yeah.
Well, and to your point, I think there's several advocates of that sit on the council. I am just as anxious as you or anyone else, I think, to have those trails available, to be able to just leave from our homes and go and enjoy those without the challenge that comes with loading up on trailers and those types of things to go, and I'm one that's looking forward to that. I appreciate Mr. Boring, as a resident and as an enthusiast, continually monitoring this item and being here as a voice and an advocate for that, because it does help keep it on the forefront of the discussion for us. I appreciate your time and being here. I, as well, am someone that wants to ensure that that keeps moving at the appropriate pace to make sure we have that amenity open up, but certainly recognize the process it has to go through internally in order to actually get that trail open and on the mountainside, and can appreciate the time that it will take and know that avenue exists in the current plan, so.
Wendy, I'd like to ask, is there any part of this plan that specifically binds us to a certain course of action, maybe prevents another course, or maybe sets a priority where if there's a conflict of use that one has to be done before the other? Anything in this
No.
plan that does that?
No,
Okay.
nope, it's just a planning guide. That's really all it is.
No, I'll make one more comment if I may, and it's kind of outside the realm. I know that that's the purpose of this plan. What I'm about to say is outside the purpose of the plan, but publicly, in addition to all these things being great amenities for the community, we're looking at it as part of our economic development. One of the resources that we have that other areas don't is potential right now access to recreation, where we've been able to qualify for federal funds and preserve the mountain. in talking with the county, there's some interest to open up some of what they own up there, canyons, et cetera. We just need to have the proper planning for road, parking access for trailers, et cetera, because we want people to come here and play and spend their money and then go back home to get their services. So it's a real big part of what we need to do, and hopefully we'll be able to kind of interweave those as we
Yeah,
continue
if
to
anybody's
move
looking to open an ATV shop or an OHV shop, call Brett. Brett will get something started here.
Yeah, it's like you just said, I'll just reiterate what Jared said on the planning, though, is that if it's not in that plan, then that means that the master roads plan, all that kind of stuff, has no idea to make sure that those roads can have the capacity to handle trucks and trailers hauling those types of things. So it all has to spell it out enough that it can be a benefit to the other plans that we have in our city also.
All right, any further discussion? No?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 02-2020, adopting the Parks Master Plan with the following amendments. Replace Nicole Martin with Stephen Shields for District 4 on the acknowledgements page, and increase the acres of open space on page 56 to 2,417.
Second?
Motion and a second. Stephen?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
I'll vote yes, that motion passes.
Can I also just say, there is mention of a shooting range on page 82 of the draft.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on to item 8.3, public hearing to discuss the petition to vacate right-of-way parcels located along McHouston Avenue. Blake?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I don't think it's a meeting if we don't discuss McHouston Avenue, so
Absolutely.
this is,
I greatly look forward to the time when we don't.
so we've worked through the design, we've worked through the acquisition of right-of-way, and then we've identified some parcels where right-of-way needs to be vacated. These parcels, I don't have a clicker. So these parcels, I'll go through them one by one. They were dedicated at different times before Herriman this area was incorporated into Herriman. This map in front of you shows the parcels, depicts the locations of them, so I'll just go A, B, C, and D as we go through them to identify a little bit more closely and give more clarity to each one. So parcel A was dedicated to Salt Lake County in 2004. It's part of the subdivision called the Shallow subdivision. And this, it was actually dedicated with the property to the south, but it's going to go back to the property to the north because the road was built at that time. So this one is approximately 1,068 square feet, and it just would lie behind the sidewalk where we build the sidewalk for the new road. Parcel B was dedicated in 2001 as part of the Kurt Barlow 2 subdivision. B and C are both part of that subdivision. And you can see when we started designing the road, this dedication, when they did it, I'm sure the county was doing their best guess of where the road would go. If we were to build to this right-of-way now, we would have encroached way into their front yard and would have made a lot of the area undesirable on their property. So we kept the road to the north and were able to fit it with our narrowed cross-section that the council decided to move forward with. And this area is 2,593 square feet. Parcel C, as I said, was part of the Kurt Barlow 2 subdivision. This one was also dedicated 2001, and this is a little bit smaller strip. It's a sliver, kind of a wedge, and it's a little over 501 square feet. Parcel D, this was part of Boone Acres subdivision. This was in 1997, so this was the earliest one. And this is just a small strip, 123 square feet. So this item is on for public hearing tonight. Our intention is to have the public hearing. You may choose to keep it open or close it, depending on the comments you get. And then this would come back, I anticipate, as an ordinance later after we get into construction, just so that we're sure that when we're constructing, we don't have to use these parcels for some staging or piling dirt, and then we can release them finally at the end, if you so choose to do, so.
So Blake, before you walk off, these, just to clarify for those that might be here, those parcels that we're looking at were parcels that were originally the landowners. They were given to the county for the road. We don't need them, so they're being given back to those parcel owners. Is that essentially what we're trying to do here?
That's correct.
Is there any compensation being given other than just the land itself?
Nope, this is just the process that is required by state statute to vacate public parcels.
Mayor, maybe let me just make it a little clear. We're vacating the public's interest in that right of way, and where it ends up, we're not making that
We're not
determination.
making that determination. Okay, thank you for clarifying. All right, any discussion by the council before we open public hearing? Okay, I will open up the public hearing on this item as well. I do have one comment form for this item by Robert Newton. If you want to come up to the podium and give us your comment, please.
I'm having a little hard time hearing some of the things that are being said. I could hear this fellow almost, and I could almost hear you. This guy I can hear good. So, and some of the others, I could hear you really good, but for some reason, anyway, I'm sorry if you already answered my question. You may have. I just wanted a clarification on the background, and so that's why I'm here. I wanted to find out what had actually taken place. How did you get these properties in the first place? Why were they dedicated? What kind of deal was struck? Was there a taking? Was there compensation for the taking? Was there an agreement of some kind? And what was the agreement? What was what was being compensated for them giving up property in the first place, the property owners? Can you help me with that?
So once we're done with public hearing, we can see if we can address that for you. So we've got to give everyone the opportunity to speak first, and then we can try to answer some of those questions for you.
Okay, well, those are my questions, and can you help me with that? That'd be great.
If I could, Robert, before you go away, let me make sure they have those questions. Just how did the city obtain the property? Was there compensation? Any others?
Is it a taking?
The taking?
Yeah, that's primarily it. If there's a precedence being set here on McQuiston, it may overflow into 13620 South, and what is taking place here for the last million years or whatever. Anyway, ongoing issues.
Okay.
Thank you. I just want to make
Thank you.
sure we get it answered.
All right. Any other individuals that would like to come and speak at the public hearing at this time? All right. Seeing none, I'll accept a motion to close I'll accept a motion if we want to close or we want to extend it or whatever you guys want to do.
I think we can close it.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Jared?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. The hearing has been closed. Blake, if you'd want to come back up here and maybe if we can go
Talk loud.
talk loud and
I'll try to speak louder this time. Okay? Okay. So I have the question, how were these parcels acquired and was there compensation? The acquisition was done by plat on the dates that I showed by the subdivisions to the
does that
county.
mean by plat?
By plat means that when the subdivision was platted, I'm not sure of any deal that was done with the county if there was compensation at that time. But I can tell that it was dedicated by plat, so it'll
So
say.
it was given to the county in some
It
form.
was given to the county on those dates that I had shown on those slides.
that's usually as part of a development process, correct?
So there possibly could have been compensation, there could have been exchange of anything, utilities, maybe road. I don't know what happened with the county when they did that.
But again, at the time that each of these that we're talking about tonight were platted, that was under Salt Lake County. And then when we incorporated, and this became part of Herriman City, these parcels that were already dedicated via plat to Salt Lake County then became platted or became right-of-way by Herriman City for potential future construction of roadway.
Yeah, they were dedicated to the public as public right-of-way, and so they were then transferred to Herriman as part of the incorporation. Is that correct, John?
But the city,
Clear, that's annexation, not
Yeah.
incorporation.
Or annexation, sorry.
annexation, correct? But the city, in getting these public right-of-ways at the time of annexation, we have no record of receiving any type of compensation from the county as a result of any deal that they made on these previously.
I have no record, and to my knowledge, we never have received any compensation. We've
We
only
didn't pay
spent to
anything,
maintain.
we didn't give anything in consideration to receive it.
And there was no compensation for any roads from the county during the annexation process, correct, Brett?
None of all.
Okay.
They were just happy to give it to us.
So there wasn't a taking, because the county, it was actually the county that gave it to us, right? They
Gave it to the county.
Well, when we obtained it,
We-
when we obtained the actual
The
property,
right-of-way.
that was from the county.
Yeah, it was generally referred to as a jurisdictional transfer.
Yeah.
So it was once the counties, when it was annexed into the city, it was jurisdictionally transferred to the city.
But in regards to the question of the taking, again, even when this happened in the county, there wasn't a taking. This was part of a development process and a recording of the plat based on these individual subdivisions that were recorded.
That's correct. If it were a taking, I would be able to track back and find a deed, but where it was deeded by plat or dedicated by plat, then there was no deed.
Okay.
Therefore, no taking. Okay.
So whoever the property owner was agreed to whatever they agreed to.
There could have been compensation, there could have been a trade, there could have been anything at the time, but it's not records that we're privy to because it all transpired before it became in the possession of the city, before it was transferred to the city.
That's correct. There could have been a land exchange, for all I know, that was done by the county, but there's no tracking of that in public records that I can find.
Okay, thank you. Does it answer me?
So it will not be part of the public hearing, but I think since we've talked about it, I'll give you 1 minute to come up and speak to us.
This is definitely out of procedure
Yes.
for us to do this, and it may be more appropriate actually to direct him to the city, to Blake than to the council, because that's where the technical.
And we did tell Dwayne
Okay. All right, so just going on with the council's recommendation, we're going to go ahead and direct you to Blake, and Blake can do his best to answer those questions for you. All right, any further discussion by the council regarding this item?
No, I just want to say, this is another indication of the progress we're making on actually constructing McHouston, to be able to go through the process we need to acquire all the land, to go through the design, and to know that these parcels will be, we don't have need for them, shows us that we're making progress, and I know that we're all going to be very excited. As Councilman Henderson said, when we don't have to discuss about McHouston every meeting because it is a completed paved thoroughfare, so.
One, at this stage, we're giving those parcels back.
We are vacating the public right-of-way.
Vacating.
We're not giving it to anyone. John just made that very clear.
We're not taking anything, we're not obtaining anything.
We're just walking away.
All right.
All right. Okay, so that was the public hearing. So we will move on to the consent agenda.
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda as written.
Second?
I have motion second. Clint?
Yes?
Sherry?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
I'll vote yes, that motion passes. Item 10.1, this is also an item that was continued from our December 11th meeting, a discussion and consideration of an ordinance to amend the Anthem Commercial Development Master Development Agreement that affects the site plan and placement of commercial signage. Michael Malloy.
Thank you. The council was briefed on this 2 weeks ago. Again, this is the result of some work. Excuse me?
We didn't have a meeting.
Oh, I apologize, at the previous meeting. This is the result of some work that the Planning Commission has done working with the Anthem commercial development in the city. Originally, this site was planned to contain a super Walmart or Walmart site. Walmart did not come to this site, and instead we have been working, of course, with Winco, which is under construction. The change in the anchor for this site required that we go back and amend the master plan for this project. Again, the proposed Walmart store is in the upper right-hand corner of this rendering. This was a original subdivision plat that we had done. Lot 3 is the site of the Walmart location at that time. And the Winco store wanted a different location within the center, closer to Mountain View, as you can see in this image. One of the issues we identified was that in relocating all of the pads and the locations of the stores in this center, there was an amenity, this plaza detail, that was proposed by the developer of this project. We wanted to make sure that in this amendment that amenity was maintained. Last time we met, the council agreed with staff that we should work a little more with the developer, the applicant, and make sure that all of the exhibits that are attached to the master development agreement were redesigned and that we have the right documents to move this project forward. And we've submitted all of those images in your packet, and I'll just show those for the benefit of the public quickly. So again, this is the original site plan on the left side of the screen and the new proposed site plan for this project on the right side. The left side was the original sign plan for the project, and again, the new sign plan is on the right and also on the subsequent sheet. You can see the style of the signage is still very similar. Winco Foods had requested a little bit larger cabinet sign at the top, as you can see on the right-hand side, but the same overall design. This is a document that is showing where all the different sign types will be allowed. There are fewer signs that are being proposed along Mountain View in this proposal. Still trying to encourage some blade signs or signs that would be attractive for pedestrians or shoppers in the center. We also asked the developer to amend their building elevations because we're focusing more on small or mid-size strip centers instead of the larger big boxes that were originally envisioned in this project. So this is a new image that would be attached if the council approves the proposed amendment. They also wanted to put in, just for reference, some of the existing projects that we have approved, consistent with the materials that were originally approved for this project. Les Schwab, of course, is now built and operating, as well as JCW's. That does set a precedence as we're working with developers and or other tenants that may be coming into the center. They can see the standards we've been setting for this center. This material board, I believe, is dated. You can see January 27th, 2016. This is the same material board in the existing agreement, so that is being maintained. And then also all of these site furnishings are consistent with the original plan. So those are all the amendments that they have prepared for your consideration tonight.
Going back to the one more slide back there, really where we're just talking exterior,
right there.
exterior finishes with the change in the main anchor for this development. Were there any substantial changes in the architectural components and design of this retail center? And if so, what were they? Obviously, this slide, as we can see the data on it, has stayed, but has there been any overall architectural changes from what that original concept plan was?
No, it still is in keeping with that original plan. There was a request from Winco to deal with the percentage of masonry.
That was my question.
Which the council did address at that time. But the materials and the overall kind of scheme, I think, was still very consistent.
So that was for Winco in particular. Do these changes to the development agreement affect the percentages for any of the other potential buildings, the smaller?
Not without council approval, yeah.
And obviously, each one of those, we have concepts there, but each one of these pads as they come in are going to go through that full review process.
Correct.
Through
With
Planning
the
Commission.
Planning Commission, right.
Any further discussion by council?
I'll just say I'm happy to see Winco moving forward. They seem to be moving rapidly, again, after some challenges over there with the previous anchor. It's exciting to see this new development happening in that area.
Go ahead.
Yeah, and with Winco being an anchor there too, it's gonna speed up the other,
Absolutely.
it's gonna be a draw, so it's.
I also want to thank the developer on this particular one, because I know that it's been a multi-year process to get this going and to stick with it and try to find an anchor that will be good for our city and bring economic development is we're grateful for. So this is, I think, once again, positive moving forward.
Michael, can I ask you just a question about the history here?
Yes.
When this was originally approved, was there just a hope for a Walmart, or was there an agreement with Walmart, or was the?
There was a letter of intent. Yeah, there was.
They bought.
Well, Walmart purchased the property.
So there was a letter of intent, Walmart purchased the property, even with all of that, we still ended up a different place, right?
At the time, I mean, so as a financial planner, followed the economic news, stocks, et cetera, Walmart had a big sea change in their strategy.
Sure.
So they had purchased that property, they had actually come in and gotten approval on site plans, and we were preparing to go. And then corporately, their strategy changed from expanding more physical locations to focusing on redeveloping existing sites with their online orders and pickup, et cetera. So we had gotten almost, I mean, to the point they were going to put a shovel on the ground, and they pulled out.
And thankfully, the master developer of this project had a provision in the the sale to Walmart that he had an ability to reacquire the property, which allowed him to negotiate with another tenant, which became Winco.
The issue that we had, though, is the timing, though. They were able to buy it back after a certain amount of time, and rather than do it earlier than that, Walmart waited until that time expired.
Clock ran out.
Just held on to it.
Really, even though they didn't.
You're pulling off a Band-Aid.
The developer's credit, they tried
I
to
just,
get them
I
to
just
speed it up
asked
for sure.
because there's a lot of proposed developments that we're going to be considering, tonight and in the future around commercial development. And I'm just curious as to what lessons are learned. And there's a cautionary tale here about our planning for commercial developments, how they can change, what that means, how that should impact our decision-making going forward. I'm just, a lot of thoughts going through my mind, wondering what was learned from this, what would we do differently in the future?
This is one of those things that when we say in one of our meetings, yeah, we've been burned before.
Yeah.
This is one of the things we're referring to, not from the developer, but from the organization that was going to come.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many levels of people involved, right? That just because we plan for something, even when we have commitments for a letter of intent for something, doesn't mean we're actually going to get that.
Things
something.
change. Yeah.
And that's, I guess that's concerning, but I'm wondering as a council, what we would do differently in the future, if anything, and how we might, protect ourselves from these kind of things.
I'm
in the
sure
future.
Mr. Gust could give us hours and hours of lessons learned
Personally,
through
from
this.
a council point of view, I don't feel there's anything we as a council or city could have done differently. Walmart purchased the property. They were the owner. They applied for the permits. It was their call. There's nothing we could do to change their mind whether they were going
And we tried.
to build the building or not. I mean, it was just unfortunate timing that was the moment when corporately it was a major sea change in their overall strategy. We weren't the only location.
Got it, understood.
Yeah.
To Michael's point, the saving grace on all of this, even though it took time to get to that point, was the foresight to put language in the original purchase agreement that if things didn't happen in X amount of time, then they could reacquire that property and go a different direction. Otherwise, we would still be sitting there with a vacant field and a company that owned that land with no intent to do anything on it and no hurry to market it.
But again, even that was up to the property owner.
We
We're
didn't
not
do
the
that.
property owner.
Yep.
We've learned a lot, and I'm sure we'll learn more.
I'm just catching up.
I'd be happy to further discuss this or accept a motion.
I'll motion to approve is that the right one? Yes. Sorry, I look up and down and lose my spot. I'll motion to approve ordinance number 03-2020, approving the First Amendment to the Master Development Agreement for Anthem Commercial Project.
I will second.
We have a motion, a second. Sherry?
Yes.
Stephen?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
I will vote yes, that motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we will move on to another item that was continued from our previous meeting, a discussion and consideration of a resolution approving and authorizing the execution of an interlocal cooperative agreement to revise and restate the creation and governance of the Unified Fire Authority. John. And if anytime you want to pull up the Chief Peterson, you're welcome to do so as well.
Sure. You have in front of you an amended and restated interlocal cooperative agreement for the UFA. Chief Peterson's here. He's made a presentation in the work meeting. I don't know how you want to proceed at this point. I can answer any questions you have about it, or the chief can.
I think if the council would agree so, I think, allowing Chief Peterson to make a brief statement of the need to go through this process for the benefit of the public that are here and viewing it, for them to help understand, what it is that we're being asked to consider and how that affects the services that are provided in the city, I think it'd be appropriate.
Chief Peterson, if you would come up, please. And Chief Peterson is the fire chief for all of UFA.
I'd be happy to, and thanks, and I appreciate the diligence of working through this particular agreement. It's an important one for everyone, right? So, as we talked in the work session, there was a lot of reasons for us to revisit the interlocal. First, the existing one was 15 years old and was designed for the separation of UFA from Salt Lake County and the transition of equipment and apparatus and all of that process that moved through there. It was also created prior to the establishment of the taxing district being the UFSA area. So with that in mind, the interlocal was a really effective document at taking that step and moving through. It was well written, well thought out, and it allowed for the cities to have more say in what was going on in the service that was being provided by Salt Lake County to the UFA. And as we come into this today, in years later, we now have the UFSA taxing authority that now is in place and owns the fire stations for those districts, with direct members owning their own fire stations. The UFA does not own any fire stations. Most of the equipment that was brought in fact, right now, all of the equipment that's been brought into the UFA from 2004 has ran through its life expectancy and has been surplused out of the system and is no longer in use. So that section was in there. We also had an experience of the establishment of townships. That since that flowed in, there were 12 members and 12 voting members of the UFA body in late 2016, and then by January of 2017, there were 17. And beginning this month, there's now 18. So there was a capture of how do we balance the voting powers between a group that's expanded, but yet hasn't actually changed in the service level, right? It really added 5 and now 6 members. The great discussion that occurred over the last year and a half or so, 2 years, has been the idea that the townships have come in, they've added value, they've matured themselves, they bring good information to making our decisions, but there was a discussion about implementing some type of weighted vote that would basically recognize the population and the value that the cost of service that's being brought. That over the last 18 months discussion, we brought chunks of that discussion to the board to address. That particular one generated the most dialogue in providing a weighted vote. And where we landed over that whole period of time was to one person, one vote for the majority of issues, but any 2 members for a budget amendment or adoption can call out the weighted vote, and that weight ends up becoming based on half of the value that you're providing for the member fee and the other half on the population you serve. For the most part, that kind of leveled the playing field. It allowed for the larger communities such as yourself that we serve to make sure that the monies aren't being driven in by a small majority into a different area or a different space. But it also allowed the smaller communities to feel like they had a reason to be present and share their opinion and find the consensus, because most of the time we will not have a split vote. We'll all be in agreement. But should the future generate some conflict in certain areas, particularly related to funding, then the system's in place to solve this problem. Specifically, the county was willing to drop from 3 to 2 spaces, and in their weighted vote, they share the vote. So their total weight right now in the vote has gone from 16%, which was 3, down to 9.22%, and the 2 attendees split that vote equally. Herriman has gone from 1/18 of a vote, which was 5.5%, to now 9.33%. And as Herriman grows, typically faster than the rest of our communities, that percentage will increase, right? So that was a key part of bringing that in. The other issues that we had to address was more language, more specificity in how members became members of the UFA and how members would withdraw from the UFA. With the concept that we don't want to take on a new community that brings a new debt, a new burden. If they come in and their apparatus is beyond repair and their stations need significant work for UFSA, or their equipment and their turnouts are all expired, we do an inventory check of that, and then we can come to the board and accept a new member. Maybe there's $1 million or $2 million or a $4 million cost to get them up to speed, and then maybe it makes sense. But there's allows for conversations to occur, but no new member can come in without a vote of the board, right? A very important component to make sure that fits. And then on a withdraw, it was about respecting that the community needs to win in the end and laying out those particular details. Basically for us, the UFA wants to be okay with our employees, and we want long-term stable employees. And for the community, we wanted to find ways that would make sense and work through the issues so that we wouldn't have to discover the problems and challenges in the middle of somebody withdrawing, and try to find a way to make that fit. Some of the core pieces we dealt with was that we basically want to make sure that the transition occurs safely, that our people have a chance to work in the new community. And it's really about trying to make it sure that so that the more stable we are as an organization, the easier it is to attract and offer the fine, good, quality people in your living room solving problems every day. We can't do that if their job is always at threat, right? And moving through that risk. So in this package, if a city were to withdraw and form their own, we want you to offer opportunity for our employees first. You don't have to take any of them, but we want you to consider as many as that are interested, that you're interested in. What that helps for me is it allows members to leave who may want to work in a smaller organization, but also allows me to keep from having to downsize in some way that allows for that flow. In return, at the employee's option, if they want to carry their vacation to the new community, we will pay the debt for vacation, and you'll post the hours into their vacation account if you take them. If you take their seniority time, they get to have that credit when they come in for seniority for whatever you decide as a municipality to apply seniority to. They come over with their turnouts because that's already issued, sized, and ready to go for them. That just comes over. Whatever lifespan is left in that turnout, it makes it a little bit easier. If early on the city decides and forms and selects their fire chief and then organizes, and then they go through a selection process sometime in the 12-month period, then we can start repositioning those people into those communities, and we can make the community not even feel the transition and make sure that the community wins and work through those issues. It's been 18 months of conversation to make sure that everything is there, right? It is not the perfect agreement for everybody, but it offers something for everybody in a really good consensus mode, right? But the process has been very healthy. Herriman has been very involved. Councilman Martin was very involved in all of these items. And As the end of her term hit, really, we were at a spot where we were beginning to engage all of the attorneys before we brought to all of the councils. But the representation was active. It was very involved. City managers were involved. We brought that to those meetings. Really happy with where that fits. But as we talked in the work session, the goal was not to control anybody. The goal was to let the community win and make sure that both organizations are healthy with additions, withdrawals, and process and accountability for delivering the service.
Thank you, Chief.
Any questions?
No.
No, and just for the public's sake too, if they have any more questions, you gave an excellent presentation in our work meeting, so I would encourage them to go back and listen to that too, because you give an even more in-depth explanation. So
Wonderful.
thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you, Chief. Any further discussion by this body?
Maybe just a quick comment. I originally drafted the UFA agreement many, many years ago, and it was only intended to be a creation document, not necessarily an operation document, because we had to get out of the county. It was never intended to go this far, so I'd recommend that you approve it.
Thank you.
Not that it's specifically related to the discussion, but I just want to commend Chief Peterson for the time and effort it took to get an agreement like this put together. Your deep understanding of the issues, your good explanations of some of the reasoning and the ideas behind it were really meaningful to us in the discussion. We appreciate that. And then above and beyond that, thank you for all you do. We thank you guys for your bravery, for your hard work, for your dedication, for your public service. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
Just a couple of quick comments, if I may. One, again, want to just commend Chief Peterson and the whole UFA organization for the work that they do, for the service that they provide to our community, and for the time spent on this on this particular item. As he mentioned, over 18 months of work that has got into re-looking at this interlocal agreement, and as was mentioned, not only how it affects the long-term viability of their organization, because of course that's their main focus and what they need to be focused on, but I really commend the approach that they took in the view of how it affects the individual communities that they currently serve, and should they make a decision to choose and do their own service, and how it provides protection and options for them to make that transition really quite seamless, especially when you're talking in terms of equipment purchasing and apparatus purchasing and the options that are built into the interlocal agreement, and how it contemplates that, again, for the success of the individual community. I know after we as a community have experienced the separation from UPD and the creation of our own police force here, if there would have been some of these principles in place, in that governing document, in that interlocal agreement, it would have made some of these long-term issues that we've had to deal with as a council really non-existent, because it clearly addresses that and clearly spells that out. I think anytime you talk about an entity, redoing and reinstating an interlocal agreement, there's always, I think, that natural hesitation and fear that the document is going to be somehow taken and skewed and made more difficult for an entity to really have say in their own destiny moving forward. And I think, again, as was explained and as we've seen, quite the opposite in the approach that was taken by Chief Peterson, his executive staff, and also the UFA board, and how they approach this. And I applaud them for their efforts and support us adopting that tonight.
That almost sounded like a motion.
Yeah.
I would be happy to make one.
I'd be happy to accept one.
All right. I'll make a motion to approve resolution number R02-2020, approving and authorizing the execution of an interlocal cooperative agreement with the Unified Fire Authority to revise and restate the creation and governance of the Unified Fire Authority.
Mr. Chair, or Mayor, could you just also amend that and say that we can make minor modifications to the interlocal as approved by the city manager and the city attorney, because there's a couple of little typos and things.
Non-technical?
Not substantive.
Non-substantive changes.
Yeah.
I will amend my motion to include the authority to make minor non-substantive changes by the city manager and city attorney.
A second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Steve?
Yes.
Jared?
Yes.
Clint?
Yes.
Sherry?
Yes.
I will vote yes. I'd also like to make a quick comment on my vote. Month ago, I made some comments in our work meeting regarding this particular agreement. And my concern at the time was exactly what Councilman Smith was referring to, was that it was making it difficult, was intended to make it more difficult for a community to choose their own destiny. I want to express my appreciation for Chief Peterson for helping relieve those concerns and having that conversation with us to help us ensure that we have that ability to control, which is why I've changed my mind from not necessarily being supportive of it to being supportive of this particular agreement. So I just wanted to state that for the record, since that had been on the record previously as well. Okay, that brings us to the end of our items for a general meeting. Our next meeting is January 16th, will be the Planning Commission at 7 p.m. And January 22nd will be our next City Council meeting. The work meeting will start at 5 p.m. The City Council meeting will start at 7:30 p.m. Just a reminder that this council has decided to push our general meeting back to 7:30 from 7, as we have had in the past, to allow a little bit more time in our work meeting to accomplish more and get more items taken care of. So moving forward, those will be at 7:30. January 20th is Martin Luther King Day, and our city offices will be closed. With that, I will accept the motion to adjourn our general meeting and go back into our work meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.